Canadian literature. That is Canadian short fiction, long form fiction, novels, even screenplays, and poetry need a bit of a geopolitical reset. In my opinion, the answer is emphatically yes. And the reason for that is because effectively, literary forms, including movies, TV scripts, help shape a national mythos within the collective imagination. I think this goes without saying. And one example of why creating such a mythos is so important is because right now, as Canada finds its sovereignty under threat from an expansionist U.S. Administration, is that Canadians don't really have a strong sense of self. That's true on a subjective level. They are also viewed more dangerously as not having a strong sense of self, which in the eyes of a predatory larger nation would make us look like easy pickings. And that's a dangerous, dangerous situation to be in. Now, how is it that Canadians can reinforce, can buttress their sense of national self? Because it's certainly there. There's a lot of passion. There's a lot of patriotism within Canada. Well, part of the answer to that, I think, is for the book publishing industry and the filmmaking industries, I'm including TV production and that streaming and all the rest, they need to do a little bit of soul searching about the kinds of themes, about the kinds of stories that they tell. And ironically, Canadians do have a relatively good sense of their own history. And in fact, this has been sort of one of the benefits of identity politics. It's sort of reinforced in the minds of average Canadians that, yes, the arrival of Europeans did lead to colonization of a continent which was already inhabited. Yes, Indigenous peoples were robbed of their own land. Yes, they were victims of forced assimilation. All those aspects of history are fine, but unfortunately, because there has been so much focus on that within Canadian literary culture, there's been an ignoring, almost a deliberate ignoring, of a lot of the other facts of Canadian history. For example, most Canadians, and this includes most Canadian writers, people who read a lot of books and you would think are quite knowledgeable, don't know that during World War I, Canada did not have any control over its foreign policy. We were still a colony of Great Britain at that time. And when Great Britain went to war alongside its ally France against Germany, the German Empire, Canada was automatically at war. We were in that war whether we liked it or not. Now, Canadian soldiers had a reputation for fighting very valiantly during World War I, and this led to an agreement in the 1930s, the Treaty of Westminster, that ceded control of Canadian foreign policy to the Canadian government. And what that meant was that when World War II broke out in September 1939, Canada was not automatically at war with Nazi Germany. However, there was a residual sense of obligation within Canada toward Great Britain, and as a result, the Canadian Parliament deliberated for around a week before it too declared war on Nazi Germany. All the Canadian generals who fought in either World War I or World War II are pretty much unknown to average Canadians. They're mythic names that we know of in other countries. For example, Black Jack Sherman in the U.S. military, Haig. Pétain of Vichy, France, was a hero from World War I. World War II is replete with very, very famous names of military leaders: MacArthur, Eisenhower, Montgomery, Patton, and so forth, Zhukov. And there are admirals from the Second World War, such as Nimitz, Ernest King, Yamamoto of Japan, and so forth. These are all names that are familiar to people with an undergraduate degree. People who went through university, took some history courses, have a kind of hobbyist interest in history, particularly World War II history. That's a profile, that's a demographic that describes a lot of Canadians, actually. However, when you try to pin them down and get them to name any Canadian generals, then they really start to falter. And this is sort of an odd aspect of Canadian society that we know so much about, for example, the military history during World War II of what other nations did, and have a very, very murky understanding, a very, very weak and obscure understanding of our own contributions to the war. Our own contributions were huge. We punched far above our weight. Second World War remains the most important historical event of modern history. But Canadians don't know that much. And a lot of this ignorance, again, returns to the preferences of Canadian fiction publishing houses. It's the myth building that this country has turned away from, and yet is painfully necessary.